Thanks for joining. It's like a full circle moment for me. I started in packaging 20 years ago. I left from traditional advertising and I came to the Midwest to work on packaging. And so this is, and it was literally this week. So I'm looking forward to talking about how we leverage packaging in a bigger way than you might be doing it today. And that is incredibly important for emerging brands. And when I came to the Midwest, I realized that packaging was more than I thought it was. I wanted a branding and packaging experience. And I had come from traditional advertising, and we were doing big TV productions and paid media, out of home, all this big stuff. And packaging seemed like a six-sided vessel to me. And so I didn't have the appreciation that I do now. And I think packaging is a very underutilized vehicle in a marketing mix. And it can do so much more even in this new generation of all of our lives being led by the phone. So I tell my teams, because I try and have them push the envelope on how they think about packaging in the marketing mix. And I tell my teams to think about when they came across a recent new product that they maybe didn't know about. So that could be virtual or in e-tail or shopping the retail storefront. And I tell them, think about what drew you to that package. So I invite you guys to do that right now and say, all right, maybe close your eyes if you want, but last time I was walking down an aisle and something garnered my attention and I wanted to learn more. It wasn't a product or a brand that I was familiar with. What drew me to that? And so I tell my teams to ask that, because what you wanted to do is you wanted to connect in some way. You wanted to break the pattern of what you're used to doing when you're clicking and scrolling or when you're walking down an aisle. So I asked them, is it the colors? Was it the message? Was it the vessel itself? What did it just look different? What drew you to that package? And I invite all marketers to think about, especially with emerging brands, how they can do something disruptive and different in order to garner attention and to give them some assets, some messaging, and things that they can then leverage in other touch points in their marketing mix. Now, packaging can be the anchor of the brand story. And my hope is in our next 15, 20 minutes here that you can think about how to harness the power of purposeful design. And I have some real examples that we'll share. And what we'll do is we'll kind of dissect those a little bit and then talk about some principles and some permission that you should have as marketers in order to make your brand stand out. So, who here is familiar with Magic Spoon? Has anyone seen this? Okay. When I came to the Midwest and I worked for the branding and packaging company, I was working on Kellogg, so I'm very familiar with cereal. And I think we can all agree that if you walk down a cereal aisle and you see this, it will look different. And it breaks a lot of rules. There is no food on, there's like one piece of food on the package. So Magic Spoon was a digitally native brand, started out that way. It is now on the shelves of Target and beyond. And it really broke the rules of what was happening in the category. And so this is a great example of thinking about what you can do to be disruptive, to break rules, and to grab attention. There's more to this story, though, than meets the eye. Certainly, there's a lot of nostalgic and playful aesthetic going on. But if you think about the actual name, Magic Spoon, doesn't say much about cereal, doesn't play into, it's actually a healthier cereal, grain-free, gluten-free, has like 3 ingredients. So there's a white space it's meeting, but they don't even acknowledge that. They create a ton of design elements, a ton of interest in the packaging name, or in the product name itself, and in how they become really whimsical in their brand design. So definitely clear messaging, definitely shelf appeal, But the hook here is they created a lot of distinctive assets and a color palette that content creators, influencers, the team's marketing partners could utilize as a springboard to do lots of things. And so that's what we are looking at here. Now, you'll have to go search it up. But if you look at the proprietors of this, they were originally in the cricket business, and they were creating bars out of crickets and insects. And then they moved into a healthier cereal. So they certainly are marketers and product developers who are open-minded to pushing the envelope. But what you'll find is that they intentionally wanted to do something very different than what we were seeing in that category. And what has happened is, because it is so different, designers are going on to TikTok and videoing, dissecting the color palette, and videoing about why this is a great design system. And that's the kind of momentum that you would want, and the chatter that you would want in the marketplace with a brand that's emerging and that's new to the market. What this also allowed was creating authentic connection, because it was so interesting and different. And so there clearly is a cohesive brand narrative that is being told here. But the social media strategy was around giving product out and letting people try it. And there was no affiliate marketing really early on. They started by just putting product out there and telling the deeper meaning of the story. Now, the aesthetic lays on top, but the deeper meaning of the story is that it creates awareness around what is in product and what the absence of negatives are in this product. And so I think there was there's been a lot of chatter in the marketplace around that. And so this really connected the dots for people, and then gave them tools to want to create and talk about the goodness of this product. As well, there was influencer, micro-influencer collaborations, but the buzz of this product truly started with the constant of the packaging design, but then expanded out and allowed for a viral movement. And from there, it now sits on the Target shelf. So the second product that we brought forward was for the Grocer Challenge. And our flagship packaging design of excellence is out of the UK. And Grocer is a leading UK trade publication, and they had set a challenge that we participate in almost on an annual basis for design agencies to revitalize categories. And in this case, they asked for us to revitalize, we chose to revitalize a nostalgic confectionery category. So think of these as the Swedish fish of North America. And so our team set out to aim to make them appealing to a modern audience. Our team didn't necessarily set out to change the packaging vessel, but in this case, the viral movement is actually the vessel itself. So as you can see, the product was locked. It was lips. And so this concept of sweet talk gave our creative team an awesome campaignable type idea where we could do a lot with it. And you think about what talk could be and how dimensional talk could be. So what was done here in terms of what we call purposeful packaging design is that we created eco-friendly letterbox-sized cardboard boxes, and they were designed for easy gifting and for passing along. So the way you might like and share on social media, the thinking was like and share the packaging. The other thing that they did was they made sure that it could fit through a letterbox. And that it was out of sustainable material and things of that nature. This is the way we think about not packaging just as function and following a communication hierarchy, but also thinking about it as a marketing vehicle as part of the marketing mix. So we made this a connected pack. And I've always said to my teams that the constant of the marketer or in the marketing mix is the packaging if it's a product. And so today, the packaging can act as a gateway to connect in a deeper way with consumers. And so when you do QR code in, you're doing that. And so we were able to deepen the story and create something more viral by allowing the QR code in to give the audience a deeper, more rich experience. So lots of opportunity. There are connected pack can be about utility, how to use it. It can be about entertainment. It can be about community, which it probably was here. Or it can deepen the brand story and share how many trees were saved if it's a sustainable. So it's something that when the marketing mix is limited, when budgets are limited, we suggest marketers consider, because it also can provide data. Now, beyond the pack, if you do have a QR experience, the pack's certainly a constant and a gateway in. Beyond the pack, you can also connect in through paid media, earned media. And so that is another thing that we suggest to our marketing partners, is to consider how what might be a campaignable idea on the pack can extend beyond the pack. So the third example that we've brought for today was also for the Grocer Challenge. And the reason why we brought this forward was because this was taking a category white space and creating something more convenient, thinking about the connected package, thinking about maybe a next generation of solution for the product that was customizable, and also doing things through in entertainment and engagement, because this would be marketed to a younger audience. So this was for the UK dairy sector, and they were facing a myriad of challenges. There wasn't a lot of innovative solutions, particularly in packaging. And so what you'll see here is, first we name this Cal, so for calcium. So this is more of a convenient way to get calcium into a youngster's diet. Intentionally, Cal is recessive. So we're not leading with Cal, but it's recessive. What we're doing is we're leading with a belly band and a customizable solution to a product. But I wanted to point this out because it's not always a six-sided box. There is lots of different shapes and forms that your vessel can be to carry your product. And so we challenge our marketing partners to be creative with how they think about creating that belly band, the materiality of it, the shape of it. Can it be turned into a paper airplane? So those are ways to create engagement and disruption, to create interest and intrigue that might not otherwise happen in an environment where you're doing a Me Too. Here's another example of how that works. So that leads us to framework. We try our best to make sure that we are promoting integrated brand messaging throughout. So think about it as not just what you want to message on the package, but in these emerging brand scenarios, include a little more. Include a backstory. Be brave and add more to it, because that could be a launch point and a connective tissue to some other things that you're doing. We also tell our clients to embrace channel-specific activations and adaptations. So it's okay on e-tail, on your thumbnails, primary, when you're looking at that, it's okay to have the package be simplified. And then the physical package be more involved. So it should not be matching luggage. I know that's an old adage, but think about how it's fit for use in its different touch points. The other thing is a consistent visual identity. Sometimes less is more. So some of the early examples that we looked at, there's a very distinctive color palette, but have a smaller bit of assets, work really hard, and then that gives your creators something to springboard from, that gives your marketing teams something to leverage, but it allows for some connective tissue and consistency throughout. Also think about cross-promotional opportunities. Could you take the gummy lips and do a collaboration with a skincare company? So those are the types of things that will get you talked about and noticed in places that you might not be otherwise. And it can all stem from the packaging idea. Engage in storytelling. I love to say, figure out that human truth. What is it? And certainly the whimsical nature of the serial we looked at was awesome. But the real truth was that it is going to be talked about by people who really care about what they're feeding their children. So find that human truth and exploit it and figure out where on that package to do that. Is it a tagline? Is it a backstory? Is it actually an invite in through the QR code that you have on pack? And as I stated, when you do get data, use it. So who is dwelling on your microsite that you've created? So use that data to iterate and experiment, test and learn, break things, because you don't have to be a Me Too, you don't have to fit in as an emerging brand. And never forget about the user in mind. Don't make it too complicated. People don't want lots of steps. So strategies for maximizing the limited touch points that you do have. We've talked about brand story. We've talked about human truths and consumer insight. But how do you take that insight and make sure you're differentiated from the rest of the category? Also, sustainable innovation. If there is something that is sustainable, it's probably worth pointing out. So think about how you can do that. Disruption. Break rules in the category. Don't be a Me Too. Multi-channel consistency. If you keep it tight and narrow and have great visual identity, great brand assets, you should be able to do that, especially as you relinquish control to the social media world. And then practical functionality. Think about the vessel. Think about whether you could stand out in a category because the vessel is something different. I just shared with my children that one of my best friends who's in Canada, they drink milk out of bags. That's like, they can't even conceive that. I had to show them a picture of how they cut a bag of milk and put it into a pitcher. The point is, think about whether you can do something different in any of your toolbox of packaging in order to stand out as an emerging brand. And lastly, an agile feedback loop. Get feedback. Listen to consumers. Do a workshop. You don't have, sometimes the best ideas are the ones that come from seeing a consumer not so sure, but then inviting it in. And so there's a Supreme Court justice that I remember saying something around obscenity, and you can't explain it, but you know it when you see it. And so what consumers might be arrested with seeing initially might be a really disruptive creative idea that you want to consider. One of our strategy team members loves this store that has taken expected candy and put it into these containers. And I leave you with thinking about that because it could be a keepsake. So if it does make sense for your product to have something that has a longer shelf life, that can live and stay beyond the use of the product inside, go for it. Because you'll get those brand repetitions, those touch points over and over again. So we always share, take the risk. As an emerging brand, what do you have to lose? Don't get stuck in a sea of sameness. And we say to our teams, if it feels average, we take agency as a creative agency for our clients. If it feels average, if it feels easy, it's probably average. So I'll leave you with that. You can ask me any questions.
Thank you so much, Mardie. If anybody does have a question, I have a microphone here. Raise your hand, let me know.
Hi there, great presentation. How do you go about testing different designs with consumers? Is it part focus group, part quant survey, but what are some of the leading edge approaches that you take to really see if the packaging resonates with consumers?
We do two things. And I'm actually headed to our offices across town to do consumer workshops. So we have been doing a lot of what we call quali-quant, where you're doing both some qualitative and some quantitative, so you get the read of both. We recommend doing a blend of both. We also recommend getting inspiration with qual early on to launch the packaging development process and kind of validate some ideas. We've done some rapid prototyping with consumers. And then we can go in and validate later. In the last few years, we've also been able to kind of mirror that with some of the online platforms, so it doesn't always have to be bringing consumers into our studio. But we do have a strategy team that's really progressive in their approaches, and what we find is just quant never gets you to what you need. You really need to balance it with qual so you can hear things. And like I said, what we find is with research, it often dilutes ideas. So because you hear feedback like, ooh, I don't know if that seems too far out. And so our suggestion is to not just take that at surface value and kind of try and dig a little deeper to really understand why and let them sit with it, come back around, and eventually sometimes it moves the brand in the right direction.